From the very first moment he saw her, standing alone beside that sun-drenched roadside bench with nothing but a torn handbag and trembling hands, something deep in Rowan Kessler's chest told him he couldn't just drive past. It wasn't the kind of instinct he could explain. Maybe it was the tired sadness in her eyes, or the way she fought to stay upright even as her whole world clearly threatened to collapse. But that morning, in the middle of an ordinary weekday, Rowan stopped his old dusty truck, not knowing that his simple act of kindness would unravel secrets, rewrite destinies, and pull him into a story far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected human connections, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness, because stories like this are born from moments when one person chooses to care. The sun was warm that late morning, casting a mellow glow across the quiet rural road leading toward the outskirts of Crestwood, a small town where everyone knew everyone. Or at least thought they did. Rowan was returning from dropping off his 8-year-old daughter, Alette, at her school, already mentally preparing for another long workday at the small carpentry shop he ran alone. His days had become a blur of sawdust, worn tools, and the steady ache behind his right shoulder. Being a single father meant working twice as hard, stretching every dollar, and keeping every tear tucked carefully behind a tired smile. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a life he tried to carry with dignity. He first noticed the woman from a distance, standing too still, trying too hard to look composed. She had a soft cream blouse, dust on her shoes, and her long auburn hair was tied back in what looked like a hastily done ponytail. But her expression was what caught him. She looked abandoned, not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, breaking on the inside way of someone who had been left behind at the exact moment they needed someone most. Her name, he would later learn, was Verena Lysander, though at that moment she guarded her identity like a fragile secret. She was supposed to have been picked up by a friend to head toward a business summit in the next city, but that friend, someone she trusted, had instead used her absence to access sensitive company documents and sabotage her position. The betrayal was still fresh on her face when Rowan approached her, gently asking if she needed help. She hesitated before admitting she was stranded, her phone dead, and her mind spinning too fast to think clearly. Rowan didn't pry. He simply offered her a ride into town, speaking softly, giving her space to breathe even though he sensed she was fighting tears. As she settled into the passenger seat, she exhaled as if she'd been carrying 1,000 invisible pounds. The truck was old, the seat slightly torn, and the radio didn't always work, but in that moment it became a small sanctuary, oddly comforting in its imperfections. During the short drive, Verena kept glancing at him, almost confused by the quiet steadiness he radiated. Rowan had hands marked by work, clothes flecked with sawdust, and an air of someone who spent his life holding things together long after they should have fallen apart. He didn't ask where she was from, or why someone like her, poised yet fragile, was standing alone on a rural road. He simply asked where she needed to go next and if she was okay. That was it. No judgment, no assumptions. Instead of directing him toward a hotel, she asked if he could take her to Crestwood's public library. It was unusual, but Rowan nodded without question. When they arrived, she thanked him quietly, her voice unsteady. He gave her his business card, carved on a small wooden chip because paper cards were too costly, and told her she could call if she needed anything. He expected never to hear from her again, but fate doesn't follow expectations. Just 2 hours later, while Rowan was measuring wooden beams inside his workshop, the library called, Verena had fainted. The librarian found his carved card clenched in her hand and dialed the number. Startled, Rowan rushed over. He found Verena on a bench outside the library, forehead beaded with sweat, breathing unevenly. She insisted she was fine, but her pale face told a different story. Rowan, without hesitation, helped her to his truck again and drove her to Crestwood's small clinic. The doctor said exhaustion had caught up to her, combined with stress, lack of food, and emotional shock. Rowan didn't leave. He sat with her until she woke, offering water and the kind of patience that asks for nothing. Verena watched him with a silent amazement, trying to understand why a stranger would care so deeply. She had lived in a world of polished smiles, etiquette, and calculated alliances, where kindness always hid behind an agenda. But this man, this simple carpenter with quiet eyes, was different. He cared with no reason to. And that touched something inside her she didn't even know had gone numb. When she was discharged, Rowan offered to drop her anywhere she wished, but instead she asked if she could rest for a few hours somewhere peaceful. Without overthinking, Rowan drove her to his small home at the edge of the forest. Alette was still at school, so the house was quiet, a humble space full of handmade furniture and the warmth of a place built by heart rather than wealth. Rowan prepared her a cup of tea and let her sit in the backyard, where sunlight filtered through tall trees and birds chased one another across the open sky. Verena breathed in deeply, feeling the tension slowly melt. She ended up staying until evening. Alette returned home with a burst of energy, shyly observing the beautiful stranger sitting in their yard. Verena, despite her lingering exhaustion, offered her a gentle smile and complimented the little wooden owl the girl held in her hand. Alette, always guarded since her mother left, warmed instantly. Children sense real kindness. They always do. Rowan watched the two of them interact, unable to explain why the sight stirred something deep inside him. Over the next few days, Verena remained in Crestwood. Her phone finally charged, and emails from her company flooded in, revealing that rumors were spreading about her abrupt disappearance. Investors panicked. Board members argued. Her assistant, loyal but overwhelmed, begged her to return. But Verena hesitated. Every time she thought about going back, her chest tightened. The corporate empire she had built for years suddenly felt like a gilded cage, and standing at its gates were people who didn't hesitate to betray her the moment it suited them. Meanwhile, Rowan's life went on. Bills piled up, his tools malfunctioned, and a large order from a client was delayed because the wood shipment had complications. He felt pressure mounting from every direction, but he never mentioned it to Verena. To him, she was a guest, a human being trying to get back on her feet. He didn't think she needed to carry his burdens too, except she saw everything. She noticed the repaired wiring on his tools, the strain in his posture at the end of the day, the tired shadows under his eyes. She noticed how he always made sure Alette had clean clothes, lunch packed with care, and help with her homework, even if it meant sacrificing sleep. She observed the small cracks in his home's foundation, the flicker in the lights when the breaker acted up, and the quiet sighs he tried to hide when he checked his bank account on his old phone. And something began to shift inside her. This man had shown her what genuine humanity looked like. Now she needed to do something in return, not out of pity, but out of gratitude, and something deeper she struggled to name. Rowan's birthday arrived quietly a week later. He didn't celebrate it. No one ever did. But Verena found the date on a document he had left on the table. She and Alette prepared a simple surprise in the early afternoon. Homemade muffins, a small wooden frame Alette carved, and a hand-picked bouquet of roadside wildflowers. When Rowan walked in and saw them standing there beaming, he froze. His eyes shimmered, but he tried to blink away the emotion. Verena saw it anyway. Something in their shared silence that day tied both of their hearts into a knot they weren't ready to admit. But reality soon returned. Her company found out where she was and sent a luxury car to bring her back. When the polished black sedan parked outside Rowan's home, Verena felt her heart twist painfully. That world, her world, had come to reclaim her. Rowan stepped back, unsure, suddenly aware of just how different their lives truly were. Alette clung to Verena's hand, not understanding why the beautiful, gentle lady had to leave. Verena hesitated at the open car door. This simple home, this humble life, this quiet man, they had given her something priceless, clarity. She realized she was running, not from responsibility but from the loneliness that had eaten away at her soul for years. She turned to Rowan and thanked him, but he simply nodded, unable to find words. Watching her leave felt like losing something he never even had the right to hope for. But life wasn't finished with them yet. 2 weeks later, Crestwood woke up to a quiet spectacle, multiple sleek vehicles driving into town, followed by news outlets whispering about a mysterious high-profile visitor.